Hi guys, and welcome back to Movies That Matter with the Viking. And today let's talk about the DCEU news, talking about updates from the Batman, Shazam 2. Let's talk a little bit about Man of Steel 2. And let's talk about David Ayer's comments recently about his cut and vision of Suicide Squad. First, let's get into the Batman. Now, of course, we know that the Batman is going to be directed by Matt Reeves. It's going to star Robert Pattinson as the Caped Crusader. And Andy Serkis, who is currently directing Venom 2, or in post-production of Venom 2, is playing Alfred. Now, this is a complete new incarnation from Zack Snyder's take, from Ben Affleck's take, and it's a complete recast and new story set in its own world. But Andy Serkis had a few things to say about the film, being interviewed by Lad Bible from the UK. And he talked mostly about the tone of the Batman and the way it's going to be. He did indicate that it's going to be darker than previous incarnations. And he said, I would say that's not far from the truth. So, if you look at it in this way, the Dark Knight trilogy was dark in its own tone. The Batman film with Ben Affleck in Batman vs Superman was dark too in its own right, and now Andy Serkis says this is going to be darker than previous incarnations. It seems to be that every single Batman film that comes out, whoever's involved with it says that it's darker than the previous films, but in this case, when it comes from Andy Serkis, who's played some very kind of dark and broody characters himself through the years, I kind of believe him in what he says. But I don't know how darker it's going to be compared to Ben Affleck's Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman was so intimidating. He was so big. He was so raw. He literally snapped a guy's neck in the Doomsday sequence, the post-apocalyptic world. And then he was marking criminals who later would be shanked and killed in prison. So I don't know how much darker you can go from that. Ben Affleck's Batman was a troubled man with a troubled past. Things that made him the way he was, and he was ruthless, and he was willing to go and do anything to get what he wanted, to take out his anger on criminals and then later take out his anger on Superman. But that was Zack Snyder's depiction of what a dark Batman story is. So maybe Matt Reeves has a completely different vision in his mind of what way the character should be, and it's interesting to see different takes on the character of Batman. We got the Christopher Nolan, the Burton films, Zack Snyder, and now Matt Reeves. So it's interesting that it has to be different than what Ben Affleck's Batman was, because Ben Affleck's Batman was different from Christopher Nolan's Batman. Nolan was different from Burton's Batman. So every incarnation, for it to work, in my opinion, needs to be different. Now this says that it's darker than other incarnations. Okay, but I don't see how much darker you can be. Maybe with the internal struggle of Bruce Wayne, we get to see that a little bit more. But Andy Serkis also had this to say. I was literally halfway through shooting my part of it when we got shut down. So it'll be interesting to see when that resurfaces, how it's been affected by the lockdown. He said also it's going to be a beautiful film, which I absolutely believe. I'm so happy that it's Matt Reeves, and I'm so happy that he cast Andy Serkis, because the both of them together did such a good job on the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes films. Those films, so heavily reliable on CGI because of the apes, looked beautiful, it looked real, it was such a good story, it's such a good trilogy. And of course, Andy Serkis has worked on big films like King Kong. He's worked on Lord of the Rings films. You know, he's been around big projects. And if he thinks this film is darker than previous incarnations, I do believe him. Remember, Andy Serkis did his own version of The Jungle Book, and that was much darker and different than the Disney Jon Favreau film. So definitely, I'm really looking forward to the Batman. I can't wait to see Matt Reeves' take. The feeling I'm getting for it is a very noir detective kind of Blade Runner 49 feel, and that has me so excited because Blade Runner was one of my favourite films in the last few years. Now let's move on to Shazam 2 and Zachary Levi's comments. Now for me personally, I liked Shazam 1. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time at the cinema. Zachary Levi did a good job portraying the character, and all around the cast, the comedic element to it, it all worked in my opinion. People said it was trying to be very like Marvel. I disagree because there's aspects in that film, especially the scene. If you haven't seen it, if you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. The scene with his mother, the scene in the boardroom. There's elements, even the very start of the film. It's not very kid friendly as you might see. Now, for me, I think the marketing of the film was done poorly in a way that it depicted a Marvel-like film. But when you get down deep into the actual film and you watch it, there's some very dark themes there. And look, it's a kid who is trapped inside a superhero. So come on, it can't be that dark and broody. There's definitely other routes you can go in the future with the character interacting with Superman and of course with The Rock's Black Adam. So I enjoyed it. It did well enough at the box office. It made 350 million plus, just a little bit over. The budget wasn't that big. It was around 80 to 100 million. So it made money back, but more importantly, probably for Warner Brothers, it was a critical success. It did really well with the critics. Now, for me personally, I don't always look at what critics say. I go and see the film myself, and if I like it, I like it. I don't really depend on the opinion of others. But all in all, the film did well in my opinion. It made money back. But Zachary Levi had this to say about the film and the upcoming sequel, which is releasing in December 2022. The truth is, I don't know much because they're still working on the script. I know some general stuff and I'm super stoked about all the general stuff that I've heard, but ultimately what I want the movie to be better than what we gave people the first time, which I think was a really good movie. And look, that's fair enough. That's exactly what we want to hear as DC fans. We want a better film than the previous film. A film that I love is Batman vs. Superman. I expected nothing more than Zack Snyder to produce a better film than that, because that's what they're trying to do every single time. They're trying to beat the film that they did previously. You can't just live on the laurels or live on the praises of what the first film did. So that's exciting to hear that that's the aim. I want them to take different risks with the sequel and do other things because the children will be older. There might be a more intimidating villain. Of course, Black Adam is down the line also. So definitely this is all positive stuff that I want to hear from the film. And Zachary Levi, I think, is very good in the role. His comedic element it also suits the role and suits the tone that they're going for. Levi continued to say, in all, we made a really good movie, a solid movie that still remained in the 90 percentile on Rotten Tomatoes and still made so many people really happy and brought people a lot of joy, and that was awesome. So if we can just do that, at least that, I'm going to be stoked. If we can do more than that, that's what I'm hoping. Now, if you read into those comments, it kind of looks like they're a bit too concerned with the Rotten Tomatoes score, and of course Warner Brothers are, because they care so much of how they're perceived by critics. We can just see what happened with the likes of Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad and what made them change direction, but that didn't work either because then we got Justice League. But I don't want them to be so concerned with Rotten Tomatoes. I want them to be concerned with gaining a bigger fan base. So 366 million at the box office, first film. They need to gain more people. They need the people who came and see it the first time to go again to see it, but they also need new people to come and enjoy the film and build a bigger audience and get that box office higher and higher and build a huge fan base for this character, which is kind of similar in a way to Superman, but it's a child within him, and you can play into that so much and gain a younger audience while also gaining an older audience. So it all depends on the themes and the tones that you try and go with, and definitely the story. But 90% Rotten Tomatoes is a good score, and the box office was good. So all in all, they're in a good position to move forward with a sequel. He also said that it was a great idea to have the Shazam family introduced in the first one, and I agree. It was a nice surprise at the end of the film for someone who doesn't read comic books that much and is not really that familiar with the character and the lore of the Shazam. It was interesting to see that little twist at the end of the film where the Shazam family came together and beat the villains, and then they were sitting in the chairs and they seen that there was one chair left, which of course down the line is going to lead to Black Adam. So that had me kind of surprised in the theatre and excited for future films. But it's going to be interesting to see what they can do now, because they need to move forward with the sequel, and with all the virus stuff that's going on, they need to do it quick, because the children are going to be getting older and older, and they want to keep the kind of childlike tone and that kind of innocence with the characters to interact and to kind of connect with younger audiences. So they'll have to move forward. And I think December 2022 is a perfect date for it. The first one came out in April, and it was sandwiched between Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame. Of course, Captain Marvel made $1 billion, and then Avengers Endgame is the highest grossed film of all time. So it's kind of just in between, and you had audiences who are probably more inclined to go see Marvel films. We're excited for both of those. Maybe they just gave Shazam a miss, but Shazam had a very Christmas feel to it, and they should definitely keep that tone for the second one, and hopefully it gains more audiences around Christmas. But that's what we have about Shazam now at the minute. That's Levi's comments. Are you excited for Shazam? I personally can't wait. Okay, let's move forward with the main man himself, the Man of Steel, Superman. Now, the other day we heard reports that Warner Brothers was willing to ditch their plans for a Supergirl film and move forward with a Superman film. Now, we don't know exactly if that's with Henry Cavill. We just know that they want to move forward with a Superman film because it makes sense coming off the back of Justice League. It makes no sense whatsoever to do a Supergirl film without having Superman there to kind of introduce the character. As I said the other day in my video, I think it's better if they did a Man of Steel 2, and then you could introduce Supergirl in that film and build her up as a character, because her on her own as a solo film, I don't know if it attracts too many people, and if it gets the rewards back. But I think if you use Henry Cavill to push that character up, you use Superman to push the character up, you can do very well. But we don't know exactly if Henry Cavill is in their plans, if he's going to come back and play the character, or if they're going to reboot it, recast, and get someone else in. We know that Michael B. Jordan was in talks last year with Warner Brothers to go and do some form of incarnation of the Superman, but it looks like they want to do Man of Steel 2 in a way. But Grace Randolph had something to say on this. You might know her from YouTube, and she's kind of involved in the business. She kind of gets scoops and things like this. But she said on her Twitter, she goes, by the way, I can't make a video about Henry Cavill coming back as Superman because I hear Warner Brothers was willing to reconsider. Cavill still wants more money than they will pay him. So still no Henry Cavill Superman. Now that comes from Grace. I don't know if she's right, I don't know if she's wrong, but let's just talk about it a little bit and pretend that she is right. Now, if Henry wants more money to come back and play Superman, he's a bigger star than he was a few years ago. Of course, he starred alongside Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible film. Of course, he has his own Netflix show, The Witcher, which was a big success, and season 2 is coming in 2022 or 2021, sorry. And so him looking for more money to play Superman, who he has played 3 times already in Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel, and Justice League. So maybe he thinks he deserves more money to play this iconic character, probably the biggest character in the world, the most known character in the world is Superman. So if he wants more money and Warner Brothers aren't willing to pay him the money that he wants, then they'll probably go in a different direction. But I think there's a big element, as I said the other day in my video. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, his ex-wife is Henry Cavill's agent. She's also The Rock's agent, and they run a company together, 7 Bucks Production, and that's involved with the Black Adam film. That company is kind of behind the scenes and pushing that film forward. So, like, Warner Brothers aren't stupid. They see The Rock. The Rock is a big box office star. Any film you put him in, he's going to make money for that film. Even the poor films that he was in, they still made back money, and made back budget, and made profit. If you take him out of those films don't do nearly as well. So he is a big star. Hobbs and Shaw was a huge success. When he's in the Fast and Furious films, so he is probably the last remaining box office star. If you put Batman in a film, if you put Iron Man in a film, you're certain to make box office. If you put The Rock in a film, you're certain to make box office. But I think The Rock wants, down the line, after his Black Adam film, I think he wants to go the route where it's Black Adam versus Superman, where they can market it in a way that it's The Rock versus Superman. And I think that's why Warner Brothers haven't gone a different direction like they've gone with the Batman. I think The Rock wants Henry Cavill in either Black Adam or a Black Adam sequel, and for the two of them to face off. And of course, with Henry's agent being The Rock's agent, it all connects together. It all intertwines in a way that they have a goal, they have a plan, and they want it done this way. And if you're Warner Brothers, you'd kind of be stupid to go against what The Rock wants and The Rock's wishes. If The Rock wants to do a Black Adam film, and then down the line he wants to do a Black Adam versus Superman film, then damn, you listen to Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Imagine how much marketing you could put into that film, how much he'd promoted himself. It's guaranteed to make box office. Man, I'd love to see it. Henry Cavill versus The Rock. Two beasts of man who look like they've been carved out of rock. Two muscular men who are just insane looking. And they play two powerful characters. So, what do I think is going to happen in this situation? I think Henry Cavill is going to come back as Superman. I don't know if it's going to be in Shazam 2, if it's going to be in Black Adam, or if it's going to be in a Man of Steel 2. But I do think he will come back. And I think with the Schneider Cut's release, this will add weight to that big time. Hugely, because it's going to propel his character as Superman. It's going to propel him as the character. There's going to be so much buzz around Henry Cavill, so much buzz around Zack Snyder's Justice League, that people and fans will want him to come back. And then The Rock will see this as a big marketing tool to use also. So I think Henry Cavill is going to come back as Superman. I think the money issue will be solved. I think everything is going to go the way that we kind of wanted in a way. We want to see The Rock and Superman. We want to see Henry Cavill come back. I think it's going to happen. It's going to be a long process of contract negotiations and money. Look, money talks, but so does box office. So does the opportunity to make a lot of money with The Rock at the helm of the DCEU. And I think The Rock sees that himself. Me personally, Henry Cavill is the best Superman. He is Superman. He's still a young guy. He was only 37 the other day. He can play this character for a much longer time. So definitely, I want to see him come back. I think he will come back. I think it's a lot to do with The Rock. If The Rock wasn't in this situation, if he wasn't so involved, I think Henry would be recasted just like Ben Affleck was. But definitely, what do you think? Do you think Henry Cavill will come back? Do you want him to come back? Are you a big fan of his? Let me know and comment below. Now, let's get on to our final topic of today. And this is about David Ayer. Now, I've been talking a lot about David Ayer recently. I like him as a director. I like all the films that he has done, especially Fury. And I was also a fan of Suicide Squad. People call Suicide Squad a mess. And I would agree with them in a way. I enjoyed the film. I thought the chemistry between the cast was brilliant. I thought the music was brilliant. The story and the villain was the kind of weak point for me. But David Ayer on his Twitter has been very interactive about Suicide Squad. We know that there is a version of Suicide Squad that exists that was changed by Warner Brothers, and it was David Ayer was made go back and reshoot scenes and change the ending, and even things that they had in concept art and ideas about the script that they wanted to do in the actual shooting of the film. They were made change, which did involve Steppenwolf being introduced. I think Parademons also, but he talked about something that I found very interesting on his Twitter the other day. He talked about the ending, which was shot. People on Twitter are always asking David Ayer questions about his cut of Suicide Squad, and a lot of people give him a hard time about the film. And he interacts, and fair play to him, he interacts, he takes things on the chin, and he clears up things also, but he also talks about the film and some scenes that didn't make the cut. Now, he said the other day that there's a lot of Joker scenes that we haven't seen, but one fan on Twitter, Marv, had this to say. He asked him a question. He goes, from what I've heard, after Joker's helicopter crashed, he made a deal with Enchantress where he'd take Harley and be the king of Gotham, and was present in the third act. Since Suicide Squad was mainly a Harley film, the temptation would have been greater. And David Ayer simply replied exactly this. It was filmed. So there's so much to this Suicide Squad from the film that we have not seen. Jared Leto's given out about it in the past, and like a completely, I don't know if it's a completely different film, but there's core elements that are completely different, and I really want to see those Joker scenes. I'm a big fan of Jared Leto as an actor, and I really wanted to see his full portrayal of the character, and he gets so much shit I just wish they'd release that cut of the film, release the Ayer cut, and show how he did in other scenes. You got to see so little of him. There was so much in the trailer that we didn't get to see, and this is one of them. Now, my big complaints about Suicide Squad is the villain of Enchantress. And it turns out that was a studio decision to make David go back and switch up the ending and add in all the stuff about her brother, and that just completely bored me. That element was just boring, didn't make any sense. It was just kind of stupid. It was such CGI heavy, and the ending, I liked the ending, the way they did it with Harley and Deadshot and El Diablo, but it could have been better. It could have been tweaked a little bit better. And we find out that they were brought back and this was reshot. That sounds like it's such a much deeper and cooler ending, and kind of would show off the kind of love that Joker has for Harley. I know people say that relationship is very toxic, and that's the big reason why they made her own film, Birds of Prey, and nothing to do with the Joker. But that film needed the Joker, and this kind of shows that the Joker has a deep, affectionate love for Harley, and this would have hit home very, very well, and it sounds like a way better ending. I'd like to know how that would have played out with the Joker making a deal with Enchantress. Would the Joker have turned on Enchantress in some way? Would have Harley's rejection for the Joker made him vulnerable in any way and helped the Suicide Squad defeat her as a villain? But then Steppenwolf was supposed to come in and win some way also, but it just shows you that we fight so much for hashtag release the Snyder Cut or hashtag Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think if we do get the Snyder Cut released, or when we do get it released or announced, we should definitely campaign for David Ayer's film, because he gets so much shit for a film that he didn't completely make. The studio came in and changed things and just completely fucked with his vision, and it made him look bad. It made Jared Leto look bad. I like the film. I like the way it was done, but a lot of people don't, and a lot of people give him hate for it. So in the end, I hope that someday through HBO Max or something, we get to see the David Ayer cut. Now, if it's completely the complete effects aren't done, then that's a different story. But then again, the Zack Snyder effects aren't done either, and that's a possibility that he's going to get to go back and shoot additional scenes and shoot extra scenes and fix up the effects. So if that's a possibility, then I think the Ayer cut is a possibility. And it just makes me even more angry with Warner Brothers and the people who were in charge in that period of 2016 to late 2017 and all the bad decisions they made. But it looks like he's campaigning for that film a lot recently on social media, on Twitter, interacting with fans and talking more and more about it. Maybe he sees a bit of smoke coming with Zack Snyder's Justice League, and he wants to kind of get in on that action and hopefully campaign for his release of the film. Of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League has a bigger fan base for the film to be released because it's Batman, it's Wonder Woman, it's Superman, it's more universally known. David Ayer, worked with practically unknown characters. But if a Snyder Cut can be released, then an Ayer Cut can be released. But it's all very interesting, and I can't wait to see if he reveals more about his cut of the film. But as always, guys, let me know what you think. Are you looking forward to the Batman? Are you excited about Andy Serkis's comments? Are you looking forward to Shazam 2? What do you think Man of Steel 2 will be? Do you think Henry Cavill is going to come back? And then, do you personally want to see David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad? Does his comments about his film change your opinion of him in general and of Suicide Squad? Do you want to see his film? Because for me personally, it's only fair that we do, because that's the film that he wanted to show us, and he gets a lot of hate for it. But as always, guys, come follow me on Twitter, interact, engage with me, MovieBuff100. Come and follow me on Instagram at Moviesthatmaherwtheviking, and you also find me on Facebook at Zack Snyder's Justice League. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Come and engage, come have some fun. We're all movie fans. Until next time, stay positive.